To better understand this concept that we have barriers between us and God, and that we need to remove those barriers so we can open to Him and allow Him to work in us and through us, I created a visual analogy called an obstructed door to represent these barriers in our life. Let's take a look at that now. Focusing on God and opening to a real relationship with Him is like a door that we have to choose to open. But when we have barriers, we could visualize this as a door such as this one. It has lots of locks and barricades across it, with vines and roots growing over it, and trash and clutter leaned against it and piled all around, that's infested with snakes and bugs, as you might imagine trash would be. This seems insurmountable, intimidating even, but all we need to do is realize that all of this is either our own creation or our acceptance of the lies of the enemy and the world which have taken hold in our heart and mind. You see, the door itself represents our own misperceptions about God and who He is and His blessings. These misperceptions keep us in a state of separation from Him, or really the illusion of separation. Then all that trash and clutter, well, that's all the unresolved emotions, traumatic events, and things from our past that we've stuffed down inside instead of really processing and resolving or giving over to God to be resolved. And the snakes and bugs in the trash are the lies and influences of the world and the enemy that we've trusted and allowed to keep feeding the illusion of our separation from God. Their presence makes us feel like getting rid of the trash and overcoming that separation would be way too difficult to accomplish. The vines growing on the door are actually what's grown up from the roots that have taken hold in our hearts. These roots developed from the seeds we let get down into our heart about what the world considers normal, acceptable, in style, trendy, and important. All ways that we've let other things distract and deceive us about who we are and where we derive our identity from. Those locks on the door are all our little customary ways of speaking, acting, or thinking that operate against the healing and peace that we want to see in our lives. Perhaps one lock is our shame about something we've done that we try to hide from others and God. Another lock may be thinking we're not good enough to be loved or forgiven by God. Another may be something we complain about, some way that we focus on the pain or difficulty instead of on our healing. Or perhaps it's someone or something that we haven't forgiven, or someone we remain judgmental about. And finally, do you see those big barricades across the door? Those represent any way that we're not living in love towards God or others the way we've been commanded to do. So, do these barriers exist because God doesn't love us and is isolating Himself from us because of our choices? No, this is the illusion. But the reality is exactly the opposite. God isn't keeping us out, we're keeping Him out. Even if it's unintentional, those barriers are created or perpetuated by us, which are operating to keep God at a distance and ourselves in some form of turmoil. We can't earn God's favor, but we can block ourselves from receiving it, and we can block Him from providing the help we so desperately want. We're keeping ourselves in isolation from Him and not allowing Him to have a relationship with us or provide for us the very things He wants the most and the very key to our healing. We don't need to do more. We need to let go of all that rubbish that's standing in our way to receiving God, just simply receiving Him. And most of us don't even realize many of the barriers that we have, the different figurative locks, barricades, and clutter that we have between us and Him. Or perhaps we may be able to see the barriers covering the door and inhibiting us from opening it. But we also need to deal with the door itself. The door in this image represents how we remain unaware of our responsibility to open to God. We're always somehow waiting on God, thinking that that he has the door closed on us, that we're asking him to be with us or to be closer to us, when the door being there at all is only possible when we choose to live in the misperception that God is not with us all the time, that he's somehow inaccessible, and we allow ourselves in one way or another to remain ignorant to how we keep ourselves from truly being with God and living healed and whole lives. Not lives without disappointment or difficulty of some kind, but lives able to thrive despite the difficulty we face because we live as children of God and not victims of the world. So, this image of the door and the various barriers to opening it is what exists over our hearts. When a door exists between us and our opening up to God, it can reveal the condition of our heart. Do we have a heart of isolation, of judgment, a heart of doubt, a heart full of hurt, or perhaps fear? How do we view ourselves, the world, or God? And how is that perception blocking us, keeping us imprisoned even from experiencing who God truly is, what an intimate relationship with Him is, and how that relationship changes everything? But let me be clear that opening to God doesn't mean we're somehow perfect. It doesn't mean we're all put together and have everything figured out. Not at all. It just means we've cleared our barriers to receiving God. We still have mud all over us and perhaps are dealing with pains, unresolved emotions, maybe even sickness. We have a lot of cleaning and healing still needed. But without barriers to receiving God, we have the source of the healing we're seeking. Clearing barriers to God allows our hearts to open to Him. Then true transformation and healing begin from the inside out. The idea of perfection is an illusion and yet another barrier to our healing. We can sometimes think we're too broken or messed up to be worthy of letting God in, or we can identify with our brokenness and keep God at arm's distance pridefully while we continue to try and fix ourselves without Him. But instead of trying to fix ourselves, we need to come to the end of ourselves, laying it all down at the feet of the Father, so that we open to Him and allow Him to start working on the inside of us. Philippians 3:12 says, "It's not that I'm perfect, but I press on to make it my own." And I love this translation because when it says make it my own, it shows how we must identify with the perfection of God so that it can transform us. Not that we can achieve it on our own, not that we're perfect, but we don't identify with that imperfection. Instead, we make God and being a child of God our identity so that He can change us. Because He has made us His own. Let's take a moment to meditate on this, how Jesus made us His own, but that we too must make Him ours. It's a union of wills, choosing God as He has chosen us. So if the goal is opening to God, the process requires removing barriers that are in some way inhibiting God's presence and His transformational power from flowing out of us. These are barriers that are the locks and barricades over the door to our hearts, the emotional clutter we've accumulated, and the worldly deceptions that we've accepted and allowed to disempower us. All the things keeping God from working in us and through us. This removal of barriers is done so we can open to God, with the goal of going deeper to the spirit level to find the solutions we need in Him. Because God operates in the Spirit and is Spirit, we must remove barriers to going deeper and accessing that spirit level. The inward flow that you see here represents where the connection series is guiding you in the direction of that inner spirit by first realizing and clearing your perceptual and behavioral barriers to receiving God so you can open to Him and establish a deep and transformative relationship with Him. From this place of openness, where we've removed barriers and accessed the inner spirit level, Then the process of true healing is a reversal of this flow, which now starts from our inner spiritual being and radiates outward, healing our soul and body. This kind of whole body healing can't be done by the world or by our own efforts alone, and it certainly doesn't require that we attain some level of perfection first. It can only be done in union with God and in the union of our spirit with His Spirit within us. Letting Him work is key. Now let's open in prayer and then move into section 2, identifying barriers in how we view ourself, our health, and our purpose.